Hi guys, Saint here, and I'll be going over the patch 5.18 patch notes. It's a lot of small changes, nothing like really big like overhauls or reworks or anything like that, but I think a lot of the small changes are actually pretty influential to the game. So let's get into it. In Nivea, they changed her Frostbite to now work on Baron and Dragon if it's queued, so now she'll be able to do Baron and Dragon a little bit faster. I don't think that this is going to be the game-breaking change. It's going to make her viable, just because she has such kind of a rough laning phase against some of the other laners, and she's also like super susceptible to being ganked because she's so slow and has such a low base health value. So I don't really think that this change is going to make Nivea play it at all, but sure, that's a nice quality of life buff. Braum, they made the mana cost on his Q 10 mana higher, which is, I think they're pretty much just like reverting what they did before, where this is the original Braum buff where they made the Q cost less mana. They did it like 4 patches ago or something, or 5 patches ago. I can't remember exactly, but after they did that mana change, Braum just kind of like came out of nowhere. He just became obviously one of the best, if not the best, supports in the game. So I think that this change is actually pretty warranted. I still think that Braum's going to be super good. I mean, just because of like the way his kit works, and he's so good at just disengaging and he's good at chasing people down with his Q and his like passive. And I think that he's still just going to be a super strong support champion. Like 10 mana is not going to be like that much, and it's not even 10 mana at all ranks. It's like only 10 mana at the last rank, and then if you like see, it's like, wait, what is this? Actually, yeah, it is 10 mana at all ranks. I'm just stupid. Yeah, it's 10 mana at all ranks, and it's still like not that big a deal. I think Braum will still just be a really great champion. So long live Braum. Caitlyn, I think. So they made Yordle's Snap Trap. They made the cooldown lower, and they also lowered the mana cost. Which before, like when you're playing Caitlyn, it actually is kind of hard to use traps in lane while still keeping enough mana to EQ combo people or to like hit them with the Q. So I think this is gonna make Caitlyn's laning overall stronger, and it's also gonna make her sieging and mid and late game stronger, just because she doesn't really have to worry about mana constraints as much. And I honestly thought that Caitlyn wasn't that bad of a champion. And then Kog'Maw and Jinx and Vayne and all this like random crap started coming up, but Caitlyn's actually a pretty good matchup against Vayne. She's actually, before, she was considered one of the counters to Vayne, and Vayne is on the rise right now because all the juggernauts are on the rise. I think Vayne's probably one of the strongest solo queue ADCs in the game, so I think these buffs to Caitlyn will actually kind of put her in line with Vayne, and I actually think that Caitlyn's a pretty decent champion. Remember, like I think like 10 patches ago, maybe even, they made her passive to where it gets ignores armor when you did the headshot on an enemy champion. I thought it was a pretty good buff, and I think Caitlyn's actually like better than people give credit for. So I think she actually might see play. Sorry, got a hiccup. But Darius, so this is changes after they hotfixed Darius. Remember they reworked him. I thought when they reworked him he absolutely sucked, and then they hotfixed him to make his Q like actually do pretty decent damage. And then on top of it, they buffed his heal that he got off his Q. So this is just kind of like to tweak those numbers that they did before. So now you get 3% less health per champion hit, but if you hit a bunch of champions, you'll get more health back overall. And then Q also just costs more mana at higher ranks. I think Darius is really strong when he's in like the right scenario. Like when he's going off, he'll go off so hard and he'll just like take over. But I think he still suffers from the same problems where he can just get kited out. I mean, Dead Man's Plate and things like that kind of help a lot with this, and Black Cleaver just applying the movement speed buff whenever you just like bleed on people. But I think Darius is just like, I mean, he's like permabanned a lot in high low even, and I think a lot of people don't like playing against him. But I honestly don't think that he's as bad as people say. I think he's just a reasonable champion, to be honest. I think like sometimes he looks broken, but I think in more scenarios he just gets kited out and just dies. Like if you have a good team for peeling and you have long range people, like I feel, and if you have CC to lock him down, I feel like he just gets crapped on super easy. So I think Darius will still be a great pick. Like these changes don't really like hurt him that much. So I think you just have to like think more about how you play with him. So in the scenarios he does shine, he'll still shine just as hard. Elise, they made her Spiderling base damage. They lowered it by a pretty decent amount at max rank, and I honestly thought Elise was like right now Elise's identity is that she just has to go off super hard early game and scrap really hard early game, which just doesn't change at all. But then if you don't get a ton of kills, she just kind of falls off late game really hard. And even if you do get a lot of kills, she still does kind of fall off late game. And I think this is just going to amplify this effect because her late game damage is what really got hit here. And I think that a lot of champions that are going to be coming up more, like Nocturne just got that ultimate buff and they buffed a warrior on this patch. Like, I thought Nocturne was a really good pick into Elise, and there's a couple other picks that are pretty decent into Elise too. But I think just with like those type of changes and this change, and then also the previous like nerf that they gave her before to her Q, I think that Elise is going to be seeing a lot less play. And I don't even know, like, I'm sure she'll be played at Worlds, but I don't think she's going to be that strong. And I honestly think some people will start to play Nocturne against her, or maybe some other champions. But Elise does have counter picks, and I think that people are going to start looking into that more. And I don't think that like, if you look at the ban pick right now for competitive play, Elise is like she's usually a first round pick in the majority of the games. So I don't think that she's going to quite sit there with that first round pick status anymore. And I think that's going to kind of go away. Ezreal, they gave him 0.5 bonus attack damage on his E, which is pretty good for your all-inning, I guess. But at the end of the day, Ezreal is still just Ezreal. Like, he's just a champion that I feel like he's like a poor man's Corki almost, where I feel like you just have to put in a lot of work to get shit done with Ezreal. Like, he's like high. He's like high. I'm not trying to think of like the wording on it, but basically you just have to put a lot of work in to get anything done with them, and the payout is like really not even that big anyways. Like, Ezreal's not like a hyper scaling late game, I'm gonna take over the game, kill everybody type of champion. Like, yeah, you can go off with Ezreal, I'm not saying he's terrible, but he just gets outclassed by like just about every single champion in the game late game, outside of like very specific scenarios where you can just get like double buffs and just go off. But I think that he just gets outshined by every single other ADC right now. And even with these buffs, like, yeah, his all-in's going to be a lot nicer, but I don't think it's going to be the real game-breaking difference for him. Yeah, he just... I don't know, I'm just not feeling Ezreal, man. I mean, maybe some people will play him, but they want like a poke champion or like a long-range follow-up champion with his ultimate, but I just don't think that Ezreal's going to see much play even with this buff. Fiora... They made her base armor lower by 3, they made her base health lower by 20, and her health growth stat also got lower. This is basically the Jax treatment. If you guys remember, like, Jax would just split push all game and just get out of control and just like shit on everybody. And I guess they viewed Fiora as the same type of problem, because she's also another champion like that where you just get out of control in lane and you just split push and just kill everybody. And they're pretty much doing the exact same nerfs to her that they did to him. So I'm sure that it will turn out in just about the same way with Fiora as it did with Jax. And where if you can get out of lane phase, and if you can actually like do good in lane, like let's say you get a good gank or something like that, then I think that she'll still just be the most obnoxious piece of crap ever, just because she's super hard to itemize against because she has so much true damage. But I think that. I think she'll still be played though. Actually, I think these nerfs are like, they're pretty decent, but I think that people will still play her because right now she's like, you have to, if she's up in the ban pick, you just pick her every single time because she's just such a stupid champion to deal with. If you pick the wrong champion against Fiora and you give her a free lane, she is just gonna be split pushing all game, and she is so hard to deal with. Like, you have to send multiple people up top to kill her just because she can riposte most forms of CC. Q now reveals Fiora to her target if she's hit them while in fog of war. Okay. That's... alright, whatever. Riposte now properly parry stretches death sentence. Riposte tooltip correctly includes debuffs in this list of things blocked. Yeah, riposte OP. Galio, idle Duran can't be cancelled by movement commands for the first 0.25 seconds of its duration if it strikes at least one champion. That honestly doesn't really do much to Galio outside of removing user error, so Galio is pretty much the same champion. Garen, killing Garen no longer causes the killer to gain villainy, and fixed the bug where the clone of Garen's allies cause the killer to gain villainy. I think Garen falls into pretty much the same scenario as Darius, where if you're in the right situation for Garen, like, he'll go off pretty hard, but if the enemy team has a certain set of champions or Cait type champions, like CCing type champions, and like Braum is a great example of a champion that's great against Garen. Where you can just Q him to slow him, and then if he decides to keep going on somebody, he just gets stunned right after that, and then you can just W on top of like whoever he's hitting. Like there's a lot of champions that just straight up cockblock Garen so hard that he's just basically unplayable. So I think Garen's like decent in some matchups and he can go off, but I don't think he's like that stellar of a champion right now. Gangplank. Now Gangplank, this is a broken champion. So they remember before they kind of nerfed the way you can put down barrels, and they also nerfed his armor pen on his barrels, which was I think 60% before this. It was either 60 or 70%. I honestly can't remember, but whatever. It's still like a lot of armor pen. So now the barrels just give armor pen at 40%, and the bonus damage got lowered by 20 at max rank, which I think are pretty reasonable nerfs to Gangplank. Like I still think Gangplank's going to be an exceptionally strong champion, just because like the farm mechanics on Gangplank mean that you just like if you look at any game with Gangplank in it and a Gangplank that knows how to farm, his gold is always like vastly higher than his lane opponents, and just because of the way that Gangplank has gold generation through his E and his Q. And then on top of that, Gangplank also has this like his ult is just absolutely ridiculous, and you can win mid. Like if you're top lane, you can win mid and bot lane with a good ultimate. And that also not only does that win that lane, but that also gives you assist and kills, which just allows you to win top lane even harder. So, and it's also really good in team fights. So just the fact that Gangplank has that obnoxious ultimate, and he still has all the gold gen, and he has like decent base stats on his E now, I still think Gangplank's just going to be an absolutely crazy champion, and he'll still see tons of play. Maybe people will start building Last Whisper more on him, since the armor pen is like not as big, but I kind of doubt it. Like I think he'll stay pretty much the same with this build. Jarvan, they increased his base armor by 2, which according to Freak is a 1.5% damage reduction increase, which is honestly not that much, but Jarvan's real problem before was his first clear just absolutely sucked, and he couldn't gank afterwards. But I think regardless of this armor change, a lot of people have been doing double jungle lately, where you just do the 2 camps together and you get your level 2 and you're at full health. And what that does is, now with Jarvan, like Jarvan's strength is his Jarvan's level 2 gank is one of Jarvan's strongest things, because he has a full CC combo with a gap closer at level 2, and I think if people just double jungle every single game with Jarvan and get him out of that weak first early clear, I think that Jarvan, along with the warrior bus, which we're going to talk about later, actually is got to be a viable champion, and maybe people will just build him full DPS Jarvan like an idiot. Or maybe they'll go like Titanic Hydra or something. Like Titanic Hydra is actually an item that I could see being viable on Jarvan, just because tank Jarvan is really good. And then, of course, with your ultimate on Jarvan, your goal is just to trap people inside there and just AoE cleave them anyways. So I think maybe that could be a build you could see coming out, but I kind of doubt it. Like if you build warrior, then you're not going to be getting Titanic Hydra anyways. But maybe people could do that build or something. So we'll see. Lulu, her health growth stat got lowered to 74. That's so low. Her health growth is almost nothing. And a lot of the reasons why people are doing this health growth nerf is because people have learned that Lulu plus ADC that's hyperscaling equals automatic win game, because it's just so obnoxious if you can make it out of laning phase. And also a lot of the reason on this too is people have also learned to build Roa on Lulu. Like Lulu's problem before was if you could catch her out and she was so squishy and like kill her before she could use her ultimate, you could just pop her and like she just get instantly killed, because she is kind of a low range champion. But when people started building Roa on her, that kind of eliminated that option. So I think they're trying to lower the health growth stat just to kind of balance that out. So I still think Lulu's is going to be absolutely ridiculous if you can get her out of lane phase and if you have a good ADC. But I think this kind of like makes her a little bit easier to deal with. And then picks can now trigger tribute from Spell Thief item line once per a Lulu basic attack. So okay, yeah, you just proc. I can't tell if this is proccing the Spell Thief an additional time or less times, because I'm pretty sure when you auto a Lulu, it only procs the Spell Thief once. So I think now it'll proc the Spell Thief twice. This picks can now trigger tribute once per. Yeah, so yeah, it basically when you auto a Lulu and you have Spell Thief, if you support Lulu, it'll proc it twice, I think. It'll be once for your auto attack and once for the Lulu picks. Mordekaiser, he now has roughly 5 less armor than he had before, and then his armor growth stat got increased, so he's going to be a little bit weaker early, but stronger later, I think? Yeah. I'd have to do the math, but I'm sure it like equals out somewhere. Not that big a deal, like the stat changes, but this is a pretty big change. Harvester of Sorrow can now be self-cast when you're alone, which means that Mordekaiser can actually be played as a solo lane now, and he can also be played as a jungle if you really wanted him to do that. But I mean, his ganks would just be like pretty crap. So probably don't want to do that. But I'm sure you could, if you really wanted to play Mordekaiser jungle and not gank for your lanes and just farm. Like I'm sure you could do that too. And then the damage no longer doubled when the zones overlap, but to tweak with that, they made it basically, they made it have a health cost. Before it had no health cost, so like before you just W and you use it as a way to heal in the duo lane and just to like top yourself off, and now it's going to actually have a health cost, so it won't actually heal you for as much. But they increased the AP ratio on it, so it's a little bit stronger damage-wise. If you're just doing it on single target. I mean, notice how they took away the damage no longer doubles when zones overlap, so to adjust with that, they made the AP ratio a little bit higher. This means just when Mordekaiser's solo and he's not around anybody, he's just going to be overall stronger. But he's going to be weaker when he has somebody with him. And then deactivation damage also got increased. So the base damages also got increased on that number. So I think if you have a lot of AP, it won't be that bad of a nerf. So I think Mordekaiser's like still pretty much the same champion in a duo lane. But I think now he can actually like thrive and do well in a solo lane. So, and the healing against minions is now 25% instead of 33%. So you combine the health cost with this change, like he actually has a lot less sustain in lane, but I still think he's just gonna have just fine sustain. And the maximum units drained is 3 instead of 2. I mean it's 2 instead of 3. So, So I guess they hurt Mordekaiser's sustain a decent amount, but I still think he's just gonna be. When he does go off, he'll go off super hard, but yeah, like every time I see a Mordekaiser in my game I'm playing jungle, I level 2 gank it every single time, like no matter what. Like I just get up in there, I try to like kill him super hard early, and I feel like if you put Mordekaiser down hard at level 2, then he just never gets back into the game just because of the way the champion is. So, but you know, like not everybody plays jungle, so maybe they don't have the same view on Mordekaiser as I do, but I think Mordekaiser's okay, and he can be kind of obnoxious, but yeah, he has to get there to begin with. Like he has to be untouched in his lane phase. I feel like before, a lot of times when you come to gank him as a jungler, if you let him get out of control and get the levels above the other lane, and use the fact that he gains more experience, and yeah, he becomes really hard to deal with. But if you just never let him get to that situation to begin with, then he's not that bad. And yes, I think Mordekaiser will be played at Worlds, even with these changes. Morgana, her Dark Binding mana cost got lowered, which is kind of good because Morgana is considered a good pick into Braum, and they also nerf Braum a little bit. So maybe if people pick Braum now, you'll start to see more Morgana coming out. And I think Morgana's honestly not that bad of a support either. She's good into Thresh and she's good into Braum. Alright, we got Skarner. He's slow, is now 50% instead of 65. Fixed a bug where Crystal charges attack speed and movement speed were scaling too quickly at early levels and too slowly at later levels. I think Skarner, honestly, after the hotfix they did to Skarner last time, I thought Skarner is fine. He's really annoying if he gets ahead, just because of the amount of CC he has and the lockdown with the ultimate. And he becomes pretty much unmanageable. But if the game's even, I think that Skarner's he's not that bad. I don't think he's that bad to deal with. I think he's only strong when you're like. I think he's only super scary when you're behind, because then that means that you can't get QSS against him and all that kind of stuff. So, I feel like Skarner's kind of a snowball champion right now. So, I'm sure he'll be played at Worlds some, but I don't think he's like as OP as everybody thinks. Sandra, her mana growth stat got increased by 13, but it doesn't really fix her real problems, and just the fact that she's honestly super easy to gank and kill. Just because she's so immobile, and she's a champion that has to snowball, and she has to fight the enemy, and like she has to go off and kill the enemy. Whereas you compare it to something like Victor, who is also another immobile champion, where Victor's goal is to just farm and poke with the E and then scale into late game. Syndra's goal is to fight and kill the opponent, and she's like an immobile assassin, so she's just super easy to gank for a jungler like Rek'Sai or something, or Elise, and she can just get picked off really hard and reverse snowballed on. So I don't think that Syndra's going to be seeing much play outside of maybe like Power of Evil playing her, but yeah, he loves fucking Syndra, but I don't think that. Yeah, I just don't see Syndra coming back on this patch. Tahm Kench, they just did kind of like moved out the interaction between Tongue Lash and Devour combo for normal cast. Now casting Devour at any point while the tongue is in midair will allow you to eat a monster or minion from distance needed without left click Devour mid slash. So I guess it's just like you don't have to time that QW combo is hard. And then Thick Skin, the color of Tahm Kench's gray health for himself and enemies has been changed in colorblind mode to be visible. Okay, so this is just, these are like not really that, this doesn't really change anything for Tahm Kench. When I first saw these changes, I thought what they were changing was like if you Q'd, okay, so W on Tahm Kench costs like 90 to 100 mana, and then Q costs 50 mana. So if you QW a minion, what it will do is it will use that 50 mana, and it won't use the 90 to 100 mana to devour the creep. So basically you're getting your devour for 50 mana, rather than using 90 or 100 mana on it. Like, I thought that that's what they were changing with this, but it turns out they're not. So, I actually think Tahm Kench is pretty good, by the way. He actually is really good into some matchups in the bot lane, and he's better than people give credit for. Like, I think, like, I play a lot of Tahm Kench. He's actually my most played champion on this account now, and I think if people find the right matchups, and I think there are like good matchups for him. I think he'll definitely see play at Worlds. Like this account's like Masters, but I also have a Challenger account where I play him a lot too, and I have 70% win rate. And I actually think he's a champion that needs to be looked at a little bit more. And I think that he can be played in the bot lane, and if you have the right matchup with him, I think he's actually really good. And he's super good against assassins too, because you just like let's say Zed or somebody ulties like your Ashe, you just eat the Ashe, and then she takes absolutely no damage. It's hilarious. So I think Tahm Kench is better than people give credit for. Twitch, his ambush. Stealth delay while taking damage is now 4.5. Is it a 6? Okay, that's a decent buff for split pushing and getting away. I know Imp plays a lot of Twitch, and Veritas, when he was at our house, was also playing a lot of Twitch and solo queue and having a lot of success, so maybe people will be playing some Twitch. This is not that big of a change, though. Veigar now grants AP on champion assist in addition to kills. Okay, that's pretty nice. And the front-loaded dark matter effect to the beginning of the cast animation instead of the end. Delay and cooldown effectively reduced by 0.25. So does that mean that your dark matter comes out faster? If that's the case, then I think Veigar actually might be pretty decent. Because if you hit a dark matter in lane, it does a fuck ton of damage, man. Like, it has a high AP ratio and it has high base damage. So, I mean, Veigar kind of has a lot of weak matchups in lane, and if this is the case, like, I don't know. I read this ability like 4 times, and I don't know if this is the animation that that the delay got lowered on, or if it's just the actual ability coming down. If it's the actual ability coming down, then I think that Dark Matter will actually be a really good harassing tool. So yeah, I think Veigar's pretty decent. And you can actually jungle with Veigar if you max W and get Spellbound Quint, so maybe somebody could be trying to do something like that, and I'll experiment with that a little bit more. It's just like quality of life changes Zyra, so nothing really changed with her. Devour, they pretty much nerfed it on the per stack, and they also nerfed the Satyr Devour damage on hit, so Devour just got nerfed a lot overall, so I don't really think that Devour is going to be... With these changes, I don't really think Devour is going to be used much at all on anybody outside of maybe like Shyvana or something, and even still, it's like... I just don't like Satyr Devour after these changes. I think these changes hurt it pretty hard, so bye-bye Satyr Devour. And then also on that same note, they made Warrior do 5 more AD, and like, so like take for instance a champion like Nocturne who just got recently buffed. I was kind of torn between Satyr Devour and Warrior, and I think after this, I think Warrior's just way better in all scenarios. So I'll probably just go Warrior on Nocturne now. I mean 5 AD is not that much, but it's like a decent buff. It's a buff to champions like Lee Sin, Kha'Zix, Pantheon, Nocturne, like all these type of champions. Even Evelynn, you can build Warrior on her sometimes. So, not the biggest buff ever, but I think it's decent. Like it's decent enough to be useful. Like even on Rek'Sai, like Rek'Sai's a champion that before you'd build Warrior on, but then once Cinderhulk became super OP, everybody just started building Cinderhulk on her. But I think with these changes, like maybe I'll build Warrior on her some games. Like take for instance the Rek'Sai Nidalee matchup. If you build Cinderhulk, Nidalee will just shit on you. But if you build Warrior with these changes, you can probably actually like scrap her and beat her out. So I think in some matchups, yeah, I think Warrior will be showing up a lot more in certain champions. So good buffs overall though, and the Lee Sin mains will all rejoice over that 580. Zeke's Harbinger now gives 5 less armor, and then the charge up duration is 5 seconds, and instead of 8, the Zeke's crit and AP bonus remains at 8. Okay, so the charge up duration. So I guess the window where you're building up the 100 stacks is a little bit shorter. So still think Zekes is a great item even after these changes. Zekes is just like, if you get Zekes on like a Tristana or something, or a Jinx mid game, if you get it really early, like your first item, I think Zekes is just, it's fucking bonkers. It gives them so much damage. It's really hard to deal with too. Like it's impossible to itemize again. Even if you have randoms, if they're critting every single hit, you're just like, Jesus Christ, my butthole. And to be honest, Zekes is not that expensive of an item, even for support, and you can kind of rush it. So if your ADC's going off, Zekes just makes the game so hard to win against. So I think Zekes is just a great item overall. Yeah, screw this item. But also, it's only good on certain, like on Kog'Maw. I don't think Zekes is like anything special. Like it's all in like the IE, it's all in the champions that build IE and the PD, like those type of champions, like Tristana and Jinx and maybe even Ashe or something. So this item's not like the end all on every champion, but it's super good. Zekes is just super good. Dead Man's Plate, Lulu's W polymorph now causes the target to lose momentum. Okay, that doesn't do anything. And that's pretty much the end of the changes, and I hope you guys enjoyed them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.